So, we're going to have a good little talk today, and I'm going to really welcome your thoughts and comments down below. Want to talk about the double life that we find so many evangelical Christians living. I mean, I've done videos on all the scandals in all the church, but this video, I kind of want to give a little bit of behind the scenes look at the evangelical Christian perspective as what's up with the double life. I've done videos and talked about reasons that those of us that have left Christianity or have walked away from religion, what were some of the big things? And hypocrisy comes up just, all the time. There's three or four big ticket items, I would say, of what people get delusioned by. Um, and just get confused by in the evangelical church, and then therefore it creates an exodus from churches. I mean, just all of the documentaries, the docu-series on all the scandals, and I'm 55, so I've been around a minute, so I remember the Jim and Tammy Faye Baker fallout. I remember Jimmy Swaggart's fallout. I actually met Jimmy Swaggart. If you don't know that one, like there's a YouTuber. I think the title of her page is Not So Good Girl. I think that's the title. She's got just a plethora. I love her channel. She's got so many um, like little YouTube documentaries on all of the fallen pastors, the fallen evangelical evangelists, all the scams and all the shenanigans. I remember Robert Tilton. Anybody remember Robert Tilton? Benny Hinn. Um, just, I mean, it's just so many that that's not what my channel is about. I'm not into trying to expose. They're already been exposed. I mean, you live a double life. Eventually, you're gonna get caught at some point. Your sins are gonna find you out, as they clearly have. Um, Especially with all the rock star type pastors, the Carl Lentz, the is it something? What's that dude? Judah Smith, I think. There's just untold amount of shenanigans. Hi, my name's Timmy Gibson, former fundamental evangelical tongue talking Holy Ghost rolling pastor. Did that for 30 years. For 30 years, I was an evangelical pastor. And for 48 years, I was in the evangelical church. This particular episode is brought to you by Parisi, one of my favorite local coffees here in Kansas City. If you're ever in Kansas City, check them out. I don't know if Parisi's. I don't know if they're more than. I'm sure they're outside of the Kansas City area, but anyway, it is actually good coffee. All right, I do want to get your thoughts and ideas. I'm not a psychologist, so I'm not sure what all's going on, what's up with the double life, but I can tell you my own personal experience. And let me just say off the get-go, I'm no angel. I was never an angel when I was living my Christian life. I was definitely no angel, and I was up to some shenanigans from time to time. Now, let me clarify by saying, and I mentioned this in the Facebook group. If you're not a part of the Facebook community that I started, it's really a fun group, man. A lot of great people in there. It's not for Christians, so if you're a Christian, you're not welcome into the group. But Christians can comment below, which they often do. But if you aren't a Christian, if you're like on your way out of Christian faith and have a lot of doubts and questions, you're kind of beginning your deconstruction, then you would be welcome. But not if you're a full blown Christian and you think you're going to come in there and try to save us. Like that's not going to work. But anyway, it's called Timmy's Deconstruction Community. It's on Facebook. Asked to join. We'd love to have you in there. It's a bunch of fun. It's for agnostics, atheists, those going through a deconstruction process. And if you're spiritual and not religious, so if you're not a fundamental religious person, just maybe kind of spiritual, you're welcome in there too. Because again, you're not fundamental. That's really what my whole channel is all about, is how toxic and traumatic and how perverted and wrong the evangelical Christian faith is. All right. So what's up with the double life? Okay, what is up with the double life? I know for myself, okay, and I'm gonna really be open and vulnerable here about some of the things that I went through in the evangelical church in my own personal struggles. A lot of the struggles that I had as an evangelical pastor, frankly, I just don't have now. And there's a lot of reasons for that, right? Because I don't view masturbation as a sin. I don't believe having sex before marriage is a sin. I don't believe drinking is a sin. I don't believe being gay is a sin. I don't, and none of those things are sinful. That's a religious word. I don't believe in that word anymore, but those that most of you know what I'm talking about, right? So when I was a Christian, yes, I struggled because, I was single in Bible college. So, yeah, I wanted to be sexual, but I was trying to deny myself of any sexual pleasure outside of, 'cause I wasn't married at the time. So anything that I did, it was labeled as being perverted. I was sexually perverse because I wanted to sleep with my girlfriend, or in fact, just sleep with any female. Like it didn't have to be a girlfriend. I was a normal dude. Masturbation is that's a normal thing for humans to want to engage in, and enjoying a little alcohol is fine, or enjoying whatever else is legal. Enjoying those things. So clearly, when I was an evangelical Christian, I felt shame and just guilt and all this stuff. Real quick, shame is feeling bad about who you are. Like, I'm a bad person because I want to have sex and I'm not married. So I'm a bad person for wanting to do that. And again, now in the brand of Christianity that I was a part of, I mean, there was no smoking, no cussing. No, I mean, there's a lot of rules, right? So clearly, I'm feeling guilty and I'm feeling shamed. I'm feeling just terrible all the time because I'm like, what's wrong with me? Why don't I want to just be celibate until I get married? I mean, that was a real deep, profound struggle. And I felt bad all the time. I did feel like an imposter all the time. I felt bad about who I was. I felt bad for having sexual desires. Now, clearly, and I'll tell you my story. This might be a little bit of a long video because I'm going to tell you about my journey, because I got married when I was 25 with someone that I met in Bible college, and we were both uber evangelical nutball Christians at the time. So clearly, you want to get married so you can have sex guilt free. So that, along with Bible college in general, you make a bad choice. You're not super compatible with someone, but you're blinded by the God filter. You're blinded by the evangelical Christian goofiness and the delusion. And also you're blinded by your own sexual desire, thinking, you know what, I need to hurry up and get married so I can be doing that. So that just sets you up for failure. My first marriage ended. It went a long time, but it ended about the time that I began my deconstruction process. And yes, that was part of that whole transition for me. And that's a personal journey, that I don't really care to get into. It's really no one's business. I've got two beautiful children as a result of that, and we're really good. We have a good relationship. That's fine. Thankfully, it's very what's the word? Um, what's that word when you get divorced and it's good? I don't know why my brain's not working right now. Amicable. There we go. You're like, Timmy, amicable. Very amicable. We didn't even we didn't use attorneys or lawyers or anything. We just sat at the kitchen table and decided. Okay, we knew that it was time, right? But I'm not gonna lie to you. In as an evangelical Christian, I was struggling with things all through. Even when I got married, I still wrestled with thoughts in my mind and just the rules, right? So, fast forward. Oh, let's go back. I've always felt like an imposter. I genuinely, and many of you can relate to this, and maybe even if you're a Christian, maybe you're going to really relate to some of this. I'm trying to serve God. I'm trying to live right, right? I'm trying to pray without ceasing. I'm trying to make right decisions. I'm really trying to surrender myself to God. I really am. And I remember because I never lived a double life, okay? There's a difference between living one way and preaching against something and then just completely having a double life. I'm just going to tell you right now, I never did that. Now, at the end of my first marriage, I came unglued. Okay, and again, no need to get into my personal details, but I did come unglued and began making poor choices as it relates to sexual stuff, and so clearly it was time to get divorced and time to move on. Okay, and I'm going to tell you about what I did the second I got divorced, how my life changed as I'm also deconstructing from my religious faith, and I'm also deconstructing from going through a divorce. I'm in counseling, I'm working through things because I got so lost in the evangelical nutball delusional world. But I want to give you a little peek behind the scenes here because, again, I think this is one of the reasons that I think people like my channel is I give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain because I was in that world, and many of the big scandals that went on in the world, I knew these people and I ran in those same circles with these people. So, I met the dude from Hillsong. I met Jimmy Swaggart. I've Joyce Meyer. I've been in around her. I didn't know her personally, but I mean, I've been to events where she was speaking, and like I've been in that world for 48 years. I've been in that ministry world, and for 30 years, I served as my own. I was a pastor, youth pastor at a mega church. I did all that stuff. Okay. I actually worked for a dude that used to work for Joel Osteen. So, I was in that world and I saw these things that were contradictory. You know what I mean? Like I would see people that would be preaching against drinking, and then I would then be in circles where I saw them drinking. And it really did baffle my mind because as at the time I'm really trying to live this life. I didn't drink, not because I didn't want to. I didn't drink because I thought it was sin and it was wrong. And there was this sense of if I'm telling people that I'm against drinking, it that doesn't seem right then for me to be drinking in private secretly. This whole secret life thing, it's I mean, it runs rampant. I mean, I can't even, I just, all I can tell you, I'm not saying trust me like, trust me, everything I say is, the gospel. Just trust me in saying it runs rampant. I know many pastors who live double lives. I know many evangelical pastors who believe it is a sin to drink, and I know they drink secretly. When I was a Christian, I couldn't do that. Now, again, I'm not free of shenanigans. I've already confessed that. I'm not a little innocent angel. Back when I was a pastor, it wasn't like I was just all this little perfect. Everything I said, I lived out perfectly. That's not true. Okay? That's just not true. And I've said it before. I'm a better person today than I was then. Then I had things to hide. Now I don't have anything to hide. Okay, and I'll tell you a little bit about my story. When I got divorced and when I was single, I'll tell you exactly how I lived. I'll tell you here in a minute. I'll tell you. I'm not going to give you juicy details, but I'm going to tell you enough that you'll know that I lived free and free from the evangelical nutballish rules, and it was way more meaningful. It was freeing to be honest. It just it's the best thing that ever happened to me was leaving evangelical Christianity. I'm just going to tell you, that was the best thing for my soul. Best thing, soul. I don't mean soul like maybe a Christian thing, soul, but you know what I mean. Like the best thing for my heart, the best thing for my mind was that because now I live honestly. I have nothing to hide, And that is a huge piece in this whole double life thing. And I know for me, there was, especially when I was single in my early 20s, okay? In my early 20s, I would have told you that premarital sex was wrong. Yet, I would occasionally do that, okay? And I felt terrible about it. I mean, I would literally cry at the altar asking God to forgive me of my sexual sins that I was, so in a sense, I have my whole Christian life felt like a double life. It just felt that way because even masturbation, you would masturbate to try to relieve sexual tension because you knew you couldn't have sex with a woman and have it be right before the eyes of the Lord. So you would do that to kind of help relieve that tension. You know what it's like. I mean, men and women both get that. You just it's a. I thought it was only dudes that get that. That's not true. It's everybody. Everybody who has any kind of sexual desire. Sometimes it just builds up so much that you just are like, okay, all right. So my whole life, I felt like a bad person because how is it that, God has made me new? I've been saved by grace through faith in Jesus. And yet I still had all these desires. Now, I know what the answer is. It's the devil trying to tempt you to leave. Okay, but just fuck that. Okay, let's not be ridiculous here. Let's not lie. Let's not be stupid. That is just, and again, I know Christians right now today who believe it is wrong to do this and they do it anyway. Okay. I struggle with the same thing. When I was an evangelical Christian, I struggled with it. And I struggled really my entire life until I deconstructed from my faith and then finally was like, you know what? I'm going to live open and honest. I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be authentic. And holy moly, it has been just a breath of fresh air. Okay, the double life. What's up with the double life? I think it does stem from all the ridiculous rules that really don't have anything to do with immorality, right? There's nothing wrong with a dude being with a dude if it's consensual, right? There's nothing wrong with someone not being married, being with someone as long as it's consensual and age appropriate, all this stuff, right? All the stuff that we all would agree on here, okay? But in the evangelical church, see, all those things are looked at as bad. So since you can't do them open and honestly, like how I would live now, which I'll tell you some of my juicy stuff of how I lived. I'm now married, and man, I'm telling you what, living open and honest, being in a committed monogamous relationship is absolutely beautiful, life-changing, fulfilling. It's just so different. I'm going to need some people that are way smarter than me, psychologists and different people that can really tap into the reason why when you have all these rules, how it just kind of makes you want to be secret and do secret things. And how someone could stand up in a pulpit and say it's wrong to do this, and yet they do it. Okay? It baffled me. Okay, I'm going to get you a little peek behind the scenes here. So I'm pastoring a church at the time, and I have a bunch of pastor friends. We're all pastoring churches that are between 200 to 300 people, all the way up to close to 1,000 people. And I had friends that had churches of 5,000, 10,000 people. But I hung out in a group of people. We're all young church people, meaning we're all newly planted. We've just started our churches. We're seeing them grow. And I'm in a pastor network. So I would go to yearly conferences with thousands of other pastors like myself. Okay. And these are conversations that we'd have. Now, obviously, pastors don't share their shenanigans unless you're in an inner circle. Like my closest friends knew, yeah, I went on to Pornhub. Yeah, me too. And I feel bad about it. God help me. Right? You'd confess things that you knew other people were guilty of too, to kind of relieve the guilt and shame that you were feeling, right? You're like, I struggle with that, oh man, I did that. And you'd kind of let a little bit of the little bit of the steam out of all the turmoil and the stuff you're struggling with when you're feeling like you're living a double life, when you feel like you're not living honestly before God, right? You're teaching these things on Sunday to your congregation, and yet you yourself are personally struggling with these things on the side. And I remember becoming so disillusioned about all of this when scandals began to come out, especially honestly for me, especially the one that happened in New Life Church out in Colorado Springs with Mr. Ted Haggard. He's preaching against homosexuality, yet he is seeing a homosexual or a gay masseuse and getting happy endings, and who knows what else they is doing. Okay. So here he is preaching against one thing and for years living a secret double life. It's so here I am talking to my pastor friends, and I remember when this scandal came out, I knew this guy personally. I had breakfast with him. I had lunch with him and his wife. Like I knew this dude, and just in all intents and purposes, very nice guy, super smart. Um, seemed like a good dude to me. It really affected me, though. It really affected me because I remember telling some of my inner circle pastor friends, because we were all, running about 300 people, and we're wanting to grow. I've said this before. I thought I was going to be the next Joe Osteen, but just with tattoos and whatever. So my goal when I was pastoring is clearly I wanted to grow a large church and win tons and thousands of people to Jesus. That was my goal. Okay, I think most people that have jobs, you want to excel and move forward and get bigger and better, and you know what I mean, like that's a normal thing. So in light of some of the shenanigans that were going on in other churches that we were finding out about, and those things spread through the Christian community way quicker than they do the public community. Like I knew about stuff before it ever hit the news. Well, that did a lot of things to a lot of us. A lot of us like really made sure to get accountability groups around us. I put all of our financial stuff for our church at the time. I had a board of trustees that oversaw that. And then we had an outside um, accounting company that would oversee our finances and keep an eye on it, because we had what I call an open book policy at our church where you could look at our financials, because I did not want to be, having any kind of shade thrown on me with financial stuff. That was that was something a lot of us pastors, we were like, hey man, we want full transparency here. We don't want to be getting into any shenanigans here or accused of stuff. So that was how we did it when it came to finances. We just had an open book policy. Now, sexual sins. I know that living that double life, it tears up your soul, because there is this part of you that really does want to surrender to God. Yet you've got all these hangups since early age. I was born and raised in church. So all I had ever heard is that masturbation is wrong, premarital sex is of the devil. But I had engaged in some of those things. So I was already just full of guilt and shame and not feeling like a good person. And you're guilty of thought crime. So even when you do get into a committed relationship, if you even think thoughts, or you even get on a porn website and you just feel guilt and shame and think, man, I really am a bad person. And that's why I need Jesus. And you know what? Leaving all that BS behind, leaving Jesus, walking away from all that stuff, now I live a more congruent life. And I really feel more at peace, more joy, more authentic. And it's just, I don't know. It's hard for me to put my finger on it to know why would I have wanted to look at porn so much before, back when I was an evangelical Christian. And I really felt the allure to want to hide and see that. And now I don't. I can't explain it to you. I really can't. I don't know why is it that I was so interested in it then? And after going through all the counseling, all of the deconstruction, and all the stuff that I went through, now one thing, I don't think porn, I don't view it as sin, but I don't have an interest in it. And I'm not trying to be like holier than thou. Obviously, this isn't about God. I don't believe in God. I'm atheist. So this isn't about, I don't want to displease God or whatever. Now I'm just not interested in that. I have a very fulfilling relationship. I don't need that. I don't have a desire for that. That's just something, but it's also something that's not, I don't consider it sin. I could look at it. I mean, you know what I mean? I would have to be open with my wife about it because we have a very open communicative relationship, but there wouldn't be judgment and all that kind of stuff in it. Oddly, I'm not interested in it now. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I really don't. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not entirely sure how it is. I could have wanted to look at it so bad as an evangelical, fundamental, Bible thumping preacher, why I wanted to look at it so bad. and now I don't. I don't know. I really don't know. A psychologist could comment below. Uh, and I'm sure Christians would be, that's because you didn't have a renewed mind, Timmy. You hadn't submitted yourself. You know what's funny? I guarantee you there are Christians watching this right now, and they're getting a little bit nervous because they're thinking, I say that that's wrong, and I do it too. Or they're going to double down and they're going to make comments and say, you were never really a Christian, and they're secretly doing stuff behind closed doors. And I hope they get found it out because they're lying. Now, I have to say this. I'm sure there are some good people, and you don't have to be Christian to be this way. In fact, my Christian friends tell me, they're like, you live more Christian now than you ever, did as a Christian. I'm like, well, go figure. I'm not a Christian, don't believe in God. I have a new perspective on life. Therapy really helped me to get myself leveled out and be more honest with who I am, what I am, all that stuff. Again, I can't explain it. All I can do is tell you my testimony. All right. So the double life thing. So fast forward through, I get divorced. I go straight to therapy. I'm working on myself. I'm deconstructing from my faith. And then, like the second I signed the papers, I quit drinking. I quit doing any kind of anything. I didn't drink. In fact, because I got my own little apartment when I first moved out, I didn't even have a TV. My thought was this: I wanted to go to therapy. I wanted to really dig deep. I wanted to journal. I wanted to read. So I didn't have a TV for 7 months. I didn't drink any alcohol for 7 months. And here I am. I don't even believe in God anymore, right? I'm not even a Christian anymore. But this was for me. This was for me because I wanted to feel all the pain of my deconstruction. I wanted to feel all the pain of the divorce. I wanted to feel all the pain and deal with it in my right mind. I wanted to deal with all of those things, all the stuff from my past, all the stuff, like all of it, my childhood, all of the stuff that I went through in my life. I was like, you know what? Now is the time to face those things head on and to really dig in and do the healing work. So not drinking. I'm not doing any kind of anything. I'm not doing any of the devil's lettuce. I'm not watching TV for 7 months. Okay. Now, the one thing I didn't stop is once I became single, I'm like, I'm single and I got some time. I want to make up for lost time, right? But here's what I did for me personally. I was like, okay, fine. I don't believe that it's a sin to have premarital sex, and I'm open for casual sex. I'm open for anything that I want to do as long as it's consensual and age appropriate, all that stuff, right? All that stuff that everybody would agree to. So here I am single. Yeah, I get on Tinder, I get on Bumble, I get on Hinge, I get on all the apps, and I start dating and having fun. And the one thing that I decided that when I became a non-believer, I was like, you know what? I value honesty, kindness, straightforwardness, transparency, authenticity. I was honest in all of my dating interactions. When I met someone, I'd say, listen, I just got divorced, so I'm in no condition to get into a committed relationship. I am literally just wanting to make connections and have fun. That's what I want to do. If you're down for that, I'm your guy. If you require a committed relationship, that we had a good date, that's it. We're done. Okay. What I found is that, because I'm heterosexual, so I date women, uh, they appreciated my honesty. They just so appreciated just my absolute, hey, here's what's up, here's what's going on. I'm not going to try to smooze you. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to try to deceive you. I'm not going to try to act like I am ready for a committed relationship when I'm clearly not. I was just 100% honest. And I'm just going to tell you, I had a fantastic dating experience. I had a lot of fun, met a lot of wonderful people, many of which I'm still friends with today. And I think it stems from my deconstruction journey, finding out who I really am, what I'm really about, getting rid of all the shame and the guilt and all the BS that came from all the traumatic stuff from believing nutball things in the evangelical church. Once I got away from that, what I found out is there was nothing that I, especially after the 7 months, and I said, okay, I'm cool. If I want to drink, I can drink now. I'm good. And ironically, I never, thankfully, I really never had an alcohol problem anyway. I wasn't like a daily drinker anyway, and still to this day, I'll have a few drinks a month. I'm just not a big drinker. It's just not my jam. And no judgment on people that do like to drink. It's just not my jam for whatever reason. I did have an alcoholic. My biological father was an alcoholic and died from drinking himself to death. So, I've always had an interesting relationship with alcohol outside of the evangelical view that I used to have, that it's sin. Well, I don't view it as sin. It's just like smoking. Smoking's not a sin. I mean, you can smoke cigarettes if you want to. It's not sinful, right? But it's not the healthiest thing, right? And so that's how I view drinking. I don't think there's anything wrong with drinking. I just don't find it the best choice for me as it relates to health. That's why I don't really like to do it. But that's just my own personal journey, okay? That's just my own personal thing. So, I'm single, I'm dating around, I'm living casual. I had I had, friends with benefits and different things. I mean, I had all the things that people who are single should enjoy, unless you're in a committed relationship and you're monogamous. You know, I went through a phase in my life when I first got single, what became single. I was really asking myself all the questions, honestly. I was like, okay, now that I'm throwing out all of the evangelical nutball belief systems, what do I believe as it relates to intimacy or sex or marriage or commitment and all that stuff? And for a time, I thought, you know what, maybe I'm just going to be single and live a casual, friends with benefits type life. Like, honestly, I thought maybe that's just what I'm going to do. I'm just going to spend the second half of my life, because when I got divorced, I think I was 50. I just turned 50. I'm 55 now. I'll be 56 this year. So I did. I was going to therapy, and I was even talking to my therapist, saying, I'm just having fun. I'm living single. I'm doing my business, what I do for a living, and I'm dating around, meeting people, having great conversations. But I'm doing everything open and honest. I'm being very authentic, very genuine, as well as going through therapy to really discover and to deal with all my past life stuff. And as I'm digging into that, for a time, maybe I'll just be single. Maybe I'll just have several friends with benefits, and we'll just, we'll just live this way, and this is what it is. As I started getting deeper and deeper into my counseling and really digging into my soul, my heart, you know what I mean? I finally got to a place where I said, you know what? I do want to be in a committed relationship. But I want to be in a committed relationship, a monogamous committed relationship with the right person, someone who I am compatible with. Okay. I wasn't in my past with someone I was compatible with. The only thing that was compatible was our evangelical Christianity. Once that went away, there was nothing else there. So, because here's what I do know: when you're with someone you're not compatible with, and the one thing that was making it compatible, the religious piece, once that goes away, it becomes very disjointed. And I'll be honest, it makes it difficult to want to live without shenanigans. It just does. Okay. So once I started deconstructing and going, oh my gosh, like what have I been doing with my life over the last 25 years? What is going on? I was so disillusioned with religion at the time. I'm walking away from religion. I'm walking away from that marriage, and I'm just like I'm in a funk. I'll be honest. It was a very, very dark, difficult time for me walking through that. But again, fast forward, divorced. I'm not religious anymore. I don't know. At that time, I don't think I was actually calling myself an atheist. I think at that point, I was like, I'm not a Christian. Like that, I'm just like, I'm not a Christian. I don't, I'm not, I'm spiritual, not religious. I think that's kind of the thing that I was saying at that point. So now, fast forward again. I'm single. I'm dating around. I'm feeling so good. I no longer feel like an imposter. I don't feel the shame anymore because I'm living openly, honestly. I'm being truthful. Uh, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm living just my full, authentic self. Then I get to a point where I'm like, okay, you know what? This has been fun. I would be lying if I said I didn't have a lot of fun. Okay, and you know what I'm talking about. I had a lot of fun, but I found that to be empty for me personally. I was like, this is kind of fun, but it's also empty because I'm having all this fun, but yet I'm still alone. And I was starting to kind of go, man, you know what what kind of relationship do I want to be in? And that's when I really realized, oh my gosh, like I definitely need to be, if I'm going to be monogamous and be in a committed relationship, it has to be the right person. And I'm married today, and many of you have seen my wife. She's of course she's beautiful. Clearly to look at, she's absolutely beautiful. But what's cool about my wife is she's as beautiful as she is outside. She's even more beautiful inside, and we're super compatible. And a lot of the things that I struggled with in my first iteration of life, in first relationship, I don't struggle with those same things now. Okay. And I can only say that I think it just stems from the own healing that I did in my own life, but also because I'm living open and honest and being authentic with my life, and I'm with someone I'm very compatible with. We're compatible in areas that you just don't even need to be compatible with, right? You know what I mean? Like there's just some things that it's like, why are we compatible there? I don't know. It doesn't matter, but we are. So that has made all the difference in the world in my personal life. And when I got to that alone. And I got to that before I was single for 3 years before I even met my now wife. And I'm telling you, I needed that 3 years to live the shenanigans and do all the things I was doing and live casual and just have fun. I needed that. It was like therapy for me to live open and honest. And if I felt like doing it, I did it. Okay. That's just how I was living then. And then after I kind of got that out of my system, and I'm like, okay, I really would like to find like a soulmate. Not soulmate is not a mystical soulmate, but you know what I mean? Like I just wanted to find someone that I could spend the rest of my life with and be monogamous with, okay, and be committed to for the rest of my life, and someone who obviously felt that same way about me. That's the magic of relationships, right? Is how much I love you, you also love me in that same way. That's what makes for a beautiful relationship. Unfortunately, there's too many relationships where one person feels like they're loving the other person, and the other person is just not loving them in the same way back. It's unfortunate. But it happens. All right. So all this stuff had to happen to me. This wasn't about my now wife. This was all in my own single time. I came to the conclusion that if and when I met the right person, I could be monogamous with. then that's who I would consider marrying if they obviously felt the same way. So all that being said, I have really, I think it has stemmed from, I've been watching a lot of docuseries and a lot of different, scandalous things about preachers and pastors and all that stuff. And it has been delusional at the time, back when I was an evangelical pastor. I'm bouncing back and forth through the stories just because I remember the conversations I had with many of my pastor friends when we were all running, 200-300 people in our church. And then we heard of these mega churches that were having these huge scandals, to which I remember saying these words to a pastor friend of mine. I'm like, guys, what do we need to grow our churches? Like, do we need to start having, scandalous? Do we just start having scandals? Like, is that what it takes? Because clearly all these mega church pastors, they have double lives. Maybe that's what we need to do. And it was like a joke. It was like a joke with me and all my pastor friends. Like, I thought it was living right before God. I thought it was praying. I thought it was reading our Bibles. I thought it was this, that, and the other that led to a blessed life. Apparently, I guess we need to start some scandals. We need to start doing some scandalous stuff. I guess that's what it looks like. What's happening in the church world, that's what we need to do to grow our ministries. I remember having that conversation because I was so disheartened. So what's the word? Discouraged that, here I am trying to live right the best of my ability, not living a double life. In my mind, I was living a double life. I wanted to do so many different things. When I was an evangelical pastor, I'm telling you, that's what we would have called temptation. I was under constant assault of temptation. I was constantly being attacked by the devil. The devil was trying to get me. I mean, it's true. I'm just being honest. Like, the entire time I was a pastor, and especially after I, tied the knot in my first marriage, I mean, it was like the devil was after me all the time. I was constantly being attacked by the devil. And it was such a struggle. And I'm laughing because now I'm not being attacked by the devil. I'm not even being attacked in any way other than by Christians. Only Christians attack me now. Which maybe that is the devil. That's the devil. You all the devil. I don't. It's the wildest thing. I'm living a better life now than I've ever lived in my ever before. Living more honest, living more of an authentic life than ever before. And yet Christians are coming unglued in the comments. Like it's like the devil attacking me. And I'm what? Why is the devil attacking me? I'm an atheist. Why is the devil interested in me? It's just crazy. So here I am living this Christian life being attacked by the devil. And now I'm living as an atheist. And now all the attacks come from the religious Christian people who are still in the delusional group that I used to be in, the cult. The cult. Evangelical Christianity is a cult. Okay, it just is. It's maybe not as super dangerous in the sense of living on a compound and all some of the squirreliness that we see in a typical cult that we all hear about, but it's still a cult nonetheless. That is shocking to me. I do find that so wild that because what's unique for me is I've lived both lives. I've been an evangelical pastor. I was an evangelical Christian. I lived in that world and I struggled, being tempted by the devil, wanted to live a double life, and at times made decisions of things that would be considered a double life, making inappropriate decisions and doing things that I knew were wrong. And I felt bad about it. And I struggled. I would tell my pastor friends, we would talk about this stuff all the time. We were always struggling. The devil was always trying to tempt us to it was unbelievable. And weirdly, I mean, Cuss and discuss this below. I find it so fascinating. The struggle, when I left Christianity, the struggle left. Now, some Christians say that's because you just turned in and just let loose and let the devil rule your life. that is a moronic statement. Because I can tell you right now from the horse's mouth, from the mouth of this donkey, I live a better life, a more honest life, a more moral life today than I did as a Christian. And yet, when I was a Christian, I was trying so hard to live according to God's principles and God's rule and to be a bright light for Jesus. And again, forget my story. Just look at the stories and the scandals that are out there. I already did a video on this. I've posted it a couple times because it gets such great review. So many people enjoy that one. All the scandals that the YouTube thing I did. I think it's called Scandals Galore in the Evangelical Church or whatever it was. Listen, Christians, I'm going to tell you right now, saying you believe in one thing and then living another thing, obviously that's contradictory. Obviously that's hypocritical. And of course it makes it look bad. And of course you're going to say, well, it's the devil tempted me. I was tempted. Well, here's what I would say. Become an atheist and you won't have to worry about temptation anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not tempted to look at porn. I just don't want to look at porn. I have no interest in porn. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to tell you except that plagued me as a Christian. I was plagued with it. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. I work as a relationship coach and I coach people still to this day. I just met with a Christian dude just a couple weeks ago. He's a hardcore fundamental evangelical Christian. And he struggles to live right. He believes all the things that are wrong, he's doing them. Doing all the things that he believes to be wrong, he's doing all of them and feels torn up about it. And it's just messing with his mind. And he asked me, because he knows I'm not a believer anymore. He's like, what's your thoughts on porn? I said, well, I just don't have an interest in it. It's just something I'm not interested in anymore. I can't explain why, but I don't know. It's just not my jam. It's just not my jam. And again, no judgment on people that do like it. I don't view it as anything. I have my opinions about it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's the most healthy thing. And especially if you're in a monogamous relationship and your partner's not okay with it, well, clearly I don't think it's a good idea. You don't want to do anything behind your partner's back. I think the best kind of thing you could ever do for any relationship is very open and honest communication. And if you're both cool with it, if your partner's like, yeah, I don't care if they look at porn, well, then okay, fine. There's no guilt, no shame, right? That's fine. Again, I have my opinions about it just because I think of the things how it can warp your mind. And I just, I'm not a big fan of it for that reason. Hey, I'll confess. So I took 7 months off, didn't have a TV and all that kind of stuff. Now, once I got back into went through my healing, went through all the counseling and all the therapy. When I was single, yeah, I did look at porn sometimes. I did. And I just did. But even when I was single and living alone, I could have been watching it 24 hours a day if I would have wanted to and not felt any guilt about it. Once I got healed in my mind and in my heart and worked through all the trauma and the weird things about evangelical Christianity, once I worked through all that, it was just, that desire left me. I don't know. Again, I'm not a psychologist, so I don't know what that flip was for me. It just flipped for me. Once I got healthy and whole in my heart, I found the desire for that just kind of petered away a little bit. I don't know what that is. Okay. So anyway, the double life. Cuss and discuss this below. It's something that just runs absolutely rampant in the church. I still meet people every day, Christian people, who are living counter to what they say they believe. They believe this. I'm in the wedding business. I do a lot of weddings. I do a lot of weddings for Christians. I do a lot of weddings for non-Christians. I do a lot of weddings for all kinds of people. And it's always interesting. I can tell when I'm sitting down with a Christian couple because they'll say this when I'm asking a little bit about their story. They'll say, well, yeah, we do actually live together and we know that's wrong, but I always tell them, I go, no, that's not wrong. I don't know, I don't think that's wrong at all. And I said, well, of course, I'm not religious. I said, I used to be religious, and so I would have used to have thought that was wrong. I said, but I don't believe there's anything wrong with that at all whatsoever. And they're like, oh, okay, good. So, and it's just that it's weird that they are heaping their own condemnation on themselves and thinking that maybe I'm going to judge them because of that as well, which I'm not. I'm not religious. I don't have any religious hang-ups like that. I don't care. In fact, I've had couples come to me and hire me as their officiant because their original officiant, this just happened not too long ago, their original officiant canceled on them because he found out they lived together. And I said, oh, he must have been a religious officiant. They said, oh, yeah, he was very religious. And when he found out we lived together, he didn't want any part of our marriage. And I was like, I know what that officiant's probably doing behind closed doors. He's got his own shenanigans. He's got his own double life. And he's going to feel self-righteous in condemning this couple. Yet he's probably watching, Pornhub and, whatever. So, that kind of stuff just drives me nutty. It drives me nutty. Every time I hear another news story about some scandal, some preacher who's been preaching against this and then doing that very thing, it doesn't shock me anymore. The big scandal that I grew up under, I'm, like I said, I was born in 1969, so I've been around for a minute. In the 80s, Jimmy Swaggart was like the number one TV preacher, had a church in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, just had a global ministry bringing in millions and millions and millions of dollars. And he's preaching against sexual immorality. He's preaching against the sin of lust. And come to find out, he'd been spending the last 2 years with a hooker and asking the hooker to bring her 9-year-old daughter along. Yeah. That scandal came out. Just Google it. You'll find it. Just look on YouTube. Jimmy Swaggart scandal. You'll find all that stuff. I lived through that scandal. I lived in that. And I met Jimmy Swaggart right after all of that when he'd repented and said, please forgive me for I've sinned against, and he's crying, I've sinned against not only you and my wife, but before God. He took, I forget what it was, some kind of a little sabbatical, a few weeks off to work through all of his issues. And then he gets back in the pulpit and he's preaching and doing all his stuff again. And he even outs some other minister for his adulterous affairs, while the whole time then he gets caught again, gets pulled over by a state trooper with a known prostitute in the car with him and a bunch of porno magazines all over the car. I'll never forget this. When this all came out, I remember, because this is in the 80s and early 90s, I remember just thinking to myself, what, honestly, at the time, I remember thinking, the devil tempted him, and got him this time. Again, that's just part of the whole why evangelical Christianity is so utterly immoral. It is absolutely immoral. It's people not taking accountability for their perverted, sick actions. I mean, you see this again. This isn't anything, I'm not telling you anything you probably don't already know or don't already feel like I feel about it. It's just, the scandals in the Catholic Church. The scandal is bad enough, right? The pedophilia is bad enough. Like, that's bad enough. But then you add in the cover-ups. That's when it just gets utterly insane. the cover-ups, the lying, the deception, the making the victim a victim again, victimizing the victim, and moving this priest to another parish and moving this pastor to another. I mean, I saw that in the group that I was in, and I'm not going to say any names, but there was another big pastoral scandal down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. A big mega church pastor there that I personally knew this dude. I know this guy. Got involved in some sexual scandal with some intern. Well, he had to resign from the church, clearly, and then take a sabbatical. Well, now he's working at another mega church in Birmingham, Alabama. On staff, has a key role in another mega church. Yet this dude was involved. And of course, anytime a scandal comes out, the only parts that we hear about are the parts that you absolutely can't deny them. It's like when things come out, what comes out is the pieces that are just unable to be covered up. It runs deeper. It's like an iceberg. What you see is only a little piece of it, but under the surface, it goes deep and wide. And that is so absolutely true. Anytime you have heard of a scandal, just trust me, it goes deeper and wider than what we all have heard. It just goes deeper. And of course, I have some inside information because I know the situation a little bit closer, and I knew some people, and I knew it went deeper, and I knew it went a little wider and more, what's the word? I know some things about some other things that was going on, and that's just what it is. That's the whole double life. But again, I wanted to do this video because I don't know what it is. Like, what causes? I could never do this. Okay, listen, again, I'm guilty of shenanigans when I was an evangelical pastor. Okay, full disclosure, I was no angel. I would never claim to have been an angel. But the double life thing, you know what I mean? Like, I never understood how someone could have like a long-term affair. Come to find out they've been in an adulterous affair for 2 years while they were pastoring a church. Or they were, I couldn't understand that because that's such a double life. To me, that's one reason why I left evangelical Christianity. I mean, not that, but the whole thing of I can't preach things I don't believe in. That's, people ask me, why didn't you just stay in it? I mean, that you were making, you're making a good living, you're growing a church, why couldn't you have just believed certain things privately and done this other thing publicly? I couldn't live a contradiction. You know what I mean? Like, if I didn't believe it, I couldn't teach it. That's why when people say he wasn't really a Christian, you're just a moron. Christians that say that, I'm sorry, you're a moron. You don't know jack shit. You're just a moron. When Christians are Christians, they're really Christians. And I know what my heart was like. I was earnest, eager, passionate, sincere. I really loved this imaginary thing that I called God. I really loved God and was really trying to live right. So clearly, I could not believe all the pastors that I was hearing about who were living these double lives. I understand mistakes. I understand desires that go counter to what you believe. I understand being tripped up. All that stuff makes total sense to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know every pastor out there has done something, but not every pastor is guilty of a double life. That's what I'm talking about here. The double life piece is something I just couldn't wrap my mind around, because for me, I wasn't living a double life. Now, again, I had desires. I did things that I shouldn't have done. But a double life, again, is I'm saying this, homosexuality is a sin. Yet for 2-3 years that we know of, this pastor was engaging in homosexual lifestyle. For, you know what I mean? Like, that's the part that always boggled my mind. And I guess it's just because I personally couldn't live a double life. My double life was in my mind. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was saying all this stuff, but I was being tempted by all this other stuff. You know what I mean? Like, that's where my struggle was. I was saying this, I was trying to be true to this, but I had all these desires. And that was what was causing all the conflicts in my heart of I'm a I'm an imposter, man. Why am I so bad? Why do I want to do these things that I know are sin? You know? And of course I had an evangelical answer for that. I had, it was the devil, like all that stupid stuff. There is no devil, right? But that's a good scapegoat. That's a good scapegoat for religious people. Is the devil tempted me and I succumbed to the devil's temptation. The devil put lust in my heart and I caved under the pressure of the devil, which is funny. It's like, well, I thought you served God. I thought God was more powerful than the devil. Apparently not, especially when it comes to lust, right? And the devil got that one down. He's getting everybody with that one. It's crazy. All right, so yeah, the double life thing, it is still, even to this day, because again, that's one of the reasons why I left evangelical Christianity. It was that for me, it was a double life of I don't believe this stuff anymore. So how could I claim to believe something I don't believe in? You know what I'm saying? Like, for me, that was one of the reasons why I really started going, I don't know about this stuff. I don't think this stuff is true. I don't think prayer actually does work. If I look at it honestly, I don't think this actually is the Word of God. When you really look, just read it. And clearly, it's not the Word of God. Like, I started looking honestly at all the things that I taught, said were true, believed to be true, whatever, all those things. As I brought all that stuff into question, yes, the most dark and difficult time of my life was in 2018, 19, when I'm going through a divorce and I'm going through my deconstruction. It was dark, man. It was difficult. When I say dark, dark meaning I was so lost and so, and those of you that have gone through your deconstruction process probably can relate to this. Or if you've gone through a divorce, you just go through a time like, who am I? What do I believe? Is there even a God out there? Like, I don't think there is now. And I think that maybe there never was, right? And you go through all of that. And man, I went through the darkness. I did. I went through the darkness. And it's one reason why I wasn't drinking. I wasn't watching TV. I was just therapy and working and, and doing my life. And then as I started getting more balanced and kept on my journey of deconstruction, living authentically, being truthful with myself, honest, and all that stuff. And man, if this is how high I was as an evangelical Christian, because I've always been a fairly happy person. I mean, it's kind of my demeanor. I mean, like, honestly, like what you see here is what my wife sees. Like, this is just kind of how I am and my personality. So, even as a evangelical Christian, I was that way. I was happy, whatever, happily delusional, happily blinded. Went through the darkness at the beginning of my deconstruction, beginning of my legally single life. And then it started to go up for me. And all of a sudden, like, all this baggage is just getting thrown off of me. All of this stuff, I'm doing the heart, I'm doing the inner work, I'm working on, and I'm still asking questions. What do I believe? What do I believe about God? What do I believe about the Bible? What do I believe about Jesus? What do I believe about all this stuff? What do I believe about, sexual stuff? What do I believe about all of it? Like, I'm asking all the questions. I mean, there was even a time where I was like, maybe I'll just be in an open relationship for all of my life. I'm asking all the questions. And here's what's key important. This is all during my dating life. And while in my dating life, and I'm getting better in my heart and coming to understand all the toxicity that I came out of in religion, I came to the own conclusion. Again, this is before I met my now wife. I came to the conclusion I want to be in a monogamous relationship with the right person who I'm compatible with. And that's the only way that I will be in a monogamous relationship is if I'm with the right person that's a good fit with me and that I can be my authentic self, live true to who I am, and this is the only way that I'm going to do this. It wasn't long after that time that I then met my now wife, and that was I am going to be as open and honest, as authentic. I mean, just here I am. This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is what I don't believe. Like, this is just who I am. I have nothing to hide. And man, what, coming from a person that's now been married, I'm married now, had been married before, coming like a person who has experienced a life before and now a life, you can't even compare them. Like, it's they're not even comparable. It's night and day difference of what it's like to be in a relationship, a monogamous, committed relationship with someone that you're compatible with, also someone who's not fundamentally religious. My wife is spiritual, but she's not fundamental at all. And a lot of the views I have about fundamental Christianity, I mean, she has all those same views. But she's spiritual, and that's fine. I have no problem with people being spiritual at all. Um, I mean, it's beautiful on her. Uh, that's not me, right? It's just not my journey. And but because she's not fundamental, it works out just fine. There's no problem. We have matter of fact, every morning over breakfast, over coffee, we sit and have coffee. It's our routine. Every morning we do coffee, we do breakfast together before we go off to work, and we talk about everything. Everything. I often tell her about what I'm going to talk about in my video for the day. I mean, we just talk openly and honestly about everything. And she can share her thoughts, I share my thoughts, and we just have a good conversation, and it's just wonderful. But we don't have the same exact perspectives on everything, and there is no need to. Anyway, so yeah, the double life. Cuss and discuss what down below. Either your experience with seeing people live double lives, your own experience with living a double life, even maybe if you've made it to the very end. For those of you that have walked away from faith, have you experienced kind of what I've experienced, which is I live a more honest, authentic life now. And a lot of the things that I struggle with as an evangelical Christian, I don't struggle with anymore. It's just different. All right. Give me your thoughts down below. I am so curious. And if you are a Christian and stuck to the end, which I'm shocked, if you did, what's been your experience in your own struggles or seeing your other Christian friends who also struggle? I'm so curious. All right, guys. Peace, everybody.